One of my problems with the prequel trilogy is that each movie kind of has the same plot. Palpatine orchestrates a crisis he's manipulating from both ends and gets a promotion while Anakin inches closer to the dark side. The details change, but it still feels sort of samey. I don't think you can say that about the original trilogy. Luke feels different in each movie, while Anakin at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith doesn't feel closer to the dark side than he did after he killed the Tusken Raiders. Luke also learns different lessons at the end of each movie. Don't put your faith in what you can feel or see. His admiration of his father was misplaced, and he chooses to walk a different path, away from the man he longed to know all his life, and that redemption is possible, despite what certain Jedi will tell you. But I'm not sure what lesson anyone learns in The Phantom Menace. Wear anti-lightsaber undergarments? Attack of the Clones gives us to be angry is to be human, and Revenge of the Sith says, if at first you don't succeed, that's it, leave the job unfinished, everything will be fine, oh no, wait. My goal with these videos is to minimize these problems as much as possible. In my Phantom Menace video, Obi-Wan has a crisis of faith, and sort of like Luke in A New Hope, learns to put his faith in the Force once again. My version of Episode 2 will showcase Palpatine's rise to power instead of eking that out over 3 movies. A problem with Palpatine's rise is that the Jedi must be complete morons in order for it to happen. Obi-Wan is told there is a Sith Lord in the Republic, and we already know you can run blood tests for midichlorians, and nobody thinks it's a good idea to check this out. Even if Dooku is lying, it'd be good to double check. The Council are having trouble using the Force. I have no idea how or where that came from, but they keep it a secret for reasons? This is before Obi-Wan is told there's a Sith Lord in their midst, so they have no reason to keep this a secret. If you're the strong arm of the Republic, don't you think you should tell your bosses you might not be able to perform your jobs, especially when everybody's lives might depend on it? The Jedi find out there's an army of clones waiting for them, allegedly from a guy who died shortly after he made the order. The clones are made from genetic material of a bad guy. He's hanging out with bad guys you do not trust. Maybe these clones you're relying on to fight your war may not be trustworthy. I'd at least do more investigating on who ordered them, since whoever did it was in bed with a bounty hunter who tried to kill one of your senators and one of your Jedi Knights. Then you get to Revenge of the Sith, and Obi-Wan tells Anakin Palpatine can't be trusted. I'm sorry, but where did this come from, and why is it only coming up now? Since Palpatine got Anakin on the council, telling Anakin you can't trust the guy who backed Anakin's promotion isn't too smart. I know you like Anakin, but just look at him. You should have your meetings where Anakin can report whatever you're comfortable with Palpatine knowing, then have your secret meetings in the bathroom where you can talk smack about politicians you don't like. Or include Anakin on the council and talk openly in front of him when you don't trust his buddy. No harm in, oh, how could this have happened? In my Phantom Menace video, I mentioned these interviews George Lucas did in 1977, expositing the backstory of A New Hope. A lot of Palpatine's rise to power is given to us in these interviews. We don't find out he's a Sith Lord, but his corruption and gaming the system, that's more or less what we get in the prequels. Leia says the Jedi were immediately warned, which, no they weren't. This would have been in his 3rd term by the time they got involved, which means even back then the Jedi weren't playing with a full deck. I'm fairly certain Lucas came up with the idea of the Jedi being an integral part of the government sometime after he was done with the original trilogy, so even if they weren't part of the Republic, they had to at least be familiar with how their system of government worked, right? I don't work for the government, technically, but I know an American president doesn't do more than 2 terms. The Jedi had to be so stupid they didn't think this was a big deal until one of the senators said, hey, Guardians of Peace and Justice, can you do your thing? Or they were distracted, which is what we had with the prequels we got. The Clone Wars were a thing while Palpatine was making his move, but all the stupidity the Jedi exhibited cannot be excused by, war is really hard, we have to use our brains too? You want these movies to work as prequels to the original trilogy, and also as movies on their own. You're going to have people who probably never watched the original trilogy, so you don't want to telegraph so hard that this senator is evil. How hard did they telegraph it? Around the time The Phantom Menace came out, my mom got me a sticker book of Star Wars stuff. I think to appease me because my church had an event that I really wanted to go to, and it got canceled. Anyway, I don't know if I ever said thanks for the book, Mom, so thank you, love you. Okay, the book describes Senator Palpatine as someone who yearns for power. Mom, what does yearn mean? Oh, it means he hungers for power? Got it, he's the bad guy. And I was 10, and not a very smart 10-year-old. Maybe they wanted us to know from the beginning, while the Jedi are completely in the dark. But don't do that. Don't let your main characters take 6 years to find out what we've known all along. You could have made Palpatine seem trustworthy. Maybe he's one of the only politicians on the Jedi side. He's campaigning to end this conflict. He's our friend. Oh wow, he's the Emperor? All it would take is for anyone to look at Ian McDiarmid's career. Oh, I see where this is going. But not everybody is going to check that out. And in a franchise that teased clones as its backstory, people could have fooled themselves into thinking this guy isn't the evil Emperor. That's just one way to keep us on our toes, which is difficult, but not impossible when you think you already know what's coming. Palpatine solidifying his power over the entire trilogy, in theory, would would be more difficult for everyone in-universe to notice what he's doing. But we've already established C-3PO has more intelligence than the entire Jedi Order, so I don't know if they would notice. If the movies hadn't made it so obvious Palpatine is evil from the start, his slow burn takeover would have been pretty impressive to see happen. By the time anyone realizes what's going on, it's too late, they're branded terrorists, and they've already lost. But the movies either didn't want to do that, or were incapable of doing that. Play Palpatine like General Zod in Kevin J. Anderson's Last Days of Krypton. There's a real crisis, the Clone War, which Palpatine did not orchestrate. He sees a chance for advancement while playing on the people's fears, buying off senators, suggesting the Supreme Chancellor isn't fit to be leading us in a time of war. He may even be war profiteering. Get him out of here. But oh, who will lead us? Oh, me? If you insist. Then saying things will fall apart if we change Supreme Chancellors in the middle of a crisis. A lot of that can happen off screen. Maybe the previous Supreme Chancellor really was corrupt, and the people assumed Palpatine can't be any worse. Since the Jedi Order is already in decline, and the ones who are active are trying to keep this war from tearing the galaxy apart, they don't think much of Palpatine serving extra terms. They probably think that's a good point. Someone else comes in, they don't know what all's happened, they try to get caught up, some disaster strikes, better someone who's been at the helm this whole time, stay there till things settle down. And suspicious senators mysteriously vanishing, that can happen quietly, and since there's a war going on, nobody's going to think twice about some guy dying in a car accident. The suspicious senators won't go all at once, that would bear investigation. Some of them Palpatine might be able to bribe, or if the war gets hot and heavy in their corner of the galaxy, a strong leader keeping everything together, they might keep quiet about their qualms of him getting comfy in the boss's chair. Also, this one would probably be unpopular, but I would not reveal Palpatine is a Sith Lord. Imagine someone watching these movies numerically. You see Palpatine cement his political power, then you get to Empire, and he's sensing stuff in the Force. That's not really a reveal in that movie, but it could be a nice surprise to somebody who is watching in this order. I don't have a lot of plot points for this one. With my video on The Phantom Menace, I still used a lot of what was in The Phantom Menace, but with Attack of the Clones, the plot is Obi-Wan discovers a clone army while Anakin and Padme fall in love. That's not much of a plot, so it's nearly impossible for me to fix the plot. Most of what I have would roughly be the last half of a hypothetical movie, but you can imagine some clue hunting and space battles leading up to all this. Obi-Wan and his apprentices are going from battle to battle, trying to maintain order and finding that difficult to do. Bail Organa is working with them, coordinating their attacks with other soldiers. This lines up with what Leia said in A New Hope. Despite the harrowing times they live in, I want these guys to feel like they're actually friends. In Attack of the Clones, Obi-Wan seemed like he always wanted to kill Anakin, while he waxed poetic for minutes about how awesome Anakin was to Luke in A New Hope. Yes, Obi-Wan is a liar, we find that out in Empire and Jedi, but I like to believe he was telling the truth about some stuff. What he describes just sounds like a better movie than what we got in the prequels. And if Anakin and Obi-Wan were friends, it makes Vader's rise and fall more tragic. Obi-Wan is growing despondent about the government he serves. He and his apprentices are working with the newly established Republic Army, but while Obi-Wan still believes the clones to be a genuine menace to the Republic, he's not sure the Republic is the exemplar of justice he always believed it was. It's little things, the soldiers becoming more brutal against defeated clones, rumors of war crimes perpetrated in the Outer Rim. Leading the squadron Obi-Wan and his apprentices are allied with would be a young Moff Tarkin, one of many Moffs who were probably grunts in the first Clone War, so they have valuable experience here. Obi-Wan can't bring up his concerns to his friends. Anakin is married to Padme now, and she's involved with reaching some kind of compromise with the clones that will benefit all parties. You might notice Padme and Bail have kind of flip-flopped on their positions from my video on Episode 1. Bail is more involved in the war, while Padme is looking to diplomacy for answers. This can be explained by characters being changed by their experiences in the war, and in an effort to see this madness end, they believe they have grown wiser in changing their tactics and beliefs. Even though Obi-Wan's known Padme for years, he doesn't want to make things awkward by bringing up his issues with Anakin. And Xizor lost a brother on Bortress, so he's gotten more frustrated and difficult to work with. If they weren't in the middle of a war and needed all the fighters they can get, Obi-Wan would send him to Dagobah to sort himself out. Obi-Wan doesn't feel okay burdening Xizor with more problems to deal with. Remember that mysterious Sith Lord our heroes encountered on Alderaan in the previous movie? He's back, and he's got allies. The Thrawn trilogy hinted there were Dark Jedi involved in the Clone Wars. Apparently Dark Jedi is a thing, though I have no idea how it's different than a Sith. I think I read once that Timothy Zahn had no idea what a Sith was, so him mentioning Dark Jedi here is effectively the same thing as Sith in the prequel era. Our Sith Lord has managed to pull a few Jedi Knights to his side, and these aren't lightweights. These are enlightened masters Obi-Wan has known of since he began his training. Our heroes are ready to throw down, but the Sith and his allies don't want to fight. Well, Sithy does, but the former Jedi convince him Obi-Wan could be a powerful ally if they can talk some sense into him. They believe there is corruption in the heart of the Republic. Republic, and they need to take it by force so they can clean house and restore order. Anakin and Zizor think this is nonsense, but Obi-Wan senses some truth to what they are saying. He suspected it for a while, but hearing others say it confirms for him the truth of what he's felt. Sith senses Obi-Wan's determination to stick with the Republic until he can find a less terroristy way of rooting out corruption. Before our Sith Lord can attack, Anakin or Zizor realizes what these guys are up to. That element you've got, the Clone Masters use that to create clones we've been fighting. You're creating more clones? And that's when the really bad news hits them. Sith wants to clone Force sensitives to create more powerful soldiers. And remember how the earliest clones in the first Clone War went insane because the Clone Masters churned them out too fast? Yeah, this guy clearly doesn't care about the consequences of increased clone production. Unlike his allies, he has no interest in rooting out the corruption in the Republic. It wouldn't hurt his feelings if the Republic completely collapsed at the hands of his psychotic Uber clones. For his motivation, it would be cool if he actually had motivation. Remember when Maul said, "We will at last have our revenge" in The Phantom Menace? Remember how that was never explained in any of the movies? The movie should be your main course. You eat a burger and fries, you feel satisfied, but oh, your mom decided to treat you to a slice of cake. That's nice, but you shouldn't walk away from the burger and fries feeling hungry. If you have to rely on the cake for nourishment, lousy metaphor, I know, just go with me here, then you've got a problem with the main course. These movies did not satisfy all or even most of the questions I had. Who was Sifo Dyas and why did he order the clones? Was he in bed with Palpatine and Dooku? Why did the Sith want revenge? Why are the Jedi having trouble using their powers? These are big questions raised by the movies, and I'm assuming you have to go to dessert to get your answers in the form of comics, novels, or video games. Those are fine, but they should be supplementary, not necessary to get the full story. I'll make something up and borrow from some of the expanded universe stuff to fill in the gaps. Zizor asks, how can you justify unleashing those monstrosities that could kill entire populations? Sith does some force telepathy to show his enemies where he's coming from. We see ancient Jedi temples and places of power, some that Obi-Wan is familiar with, so Sith isn't lying, as these temples are sacred, and not just anybody is allowed in them. Long ago, before the formation of the Republic, a group of disenfranchised Jedi broke off from the Jedi Order, becoming the first Sith. At the time of this schism, some of the Sith believed they needed to take more action in the affairs of the Muggles. Look at the wars, the poverty. They're not capable of handling their own problems, but we've got the power. We can help them. The Jedi were all, nah, let's let them take care of themselves. If we step in, that's a slippery slope to becoming power-mad dictators. This is salient as we see similar discussion with Palpatine saying he doesn't want to serve for a third term and maybe a fourth term, but look at all this chaos. I'm trying to save lives here. If you kick me out, is any of this going to get better? And in a long ago time, who's to say if the Jedi were right? Maybe the Sith would have gotten carried away, but the Jedi were wrong to stay so distant from the problems of the citizens they're supposed to protect. With no clear answer in this heated argument, we will borrow from the Age of Republic villains comic. Maul believes the Sith were nearly wiped out by the Jedi. Maybe this happened, or maybe the Sith finally had enough of the Jedi's nonsense and they attacked first in a war that's now been forgotten by the Jedi. We can also say this schism is what led to the Jedi Order going from a unified order like the Round Table to a bunch of scattered samurai all teaching different doctrines and beliefs. The movies never get into it, and I'm sure some tie-in media I've never heard of explains it, but I would say one of the first Sith to fall at the Jedi's hands was named Darth something. Beginning with this schism, Sith Lords abandon their former names and take up the name Darth to honor a fallen master, and as the centuries pass, they begin to pick the name of another long-dead Sith as well. I'm not sure where Palpatine pulled the name Vader from, or why Anakin had to give up his old name, since Palpatine didn't, other than that's how it was in the original trilogy when Lucas hadn't yet decided Vader and Anakin were one and the same. Zizor feels the most betrayed by this revelation. How can we still abide by our sworn oaths after this? It's only when Obi-Wan reminds Zizor his brother was killed by the clones, who this Sith Lord was in league with the last time they fought, that Zizor's better judgment prevails. Anakin seems distant, not the carefree, cheerful apprentice we've come to know. Obi-Wan's troubled by his lack of reaction, but he can always talk with him later when things quiet down. While Obi-Wan is upset at what he's learned, there's not a lot they can do about it. The Jedi who did this are all long dead. It's unlikely any still in the Order are aware of it. Since we're dealing with a Jedi Order that's already in decline, it's not like we have a main group of Jedi who might have hid this from their students. Obi-Wan makes it clear to the former Jedi their goals do not line up with the Sith Lords, and when they're about to question this alliance, Sith fires lightning at them, killing them. He has the genetic material he needed from them, and he's already unleashed the Jedi clones. Sith taunts our heroes that he doesn't need to fight them because his Force vision has already defeated them. He flees, and our heroes split up. Anakin and Zizor join the Republic soldiers in finding and stopping the Jedi clones, if they can. According to the Thrawn trilogy, the Imperial Senate was still dealing with the aftermath of the Dark Jedi in Leia's lifetime, so Anakin and Zizor won't be able to curtail the Jedi clone attacks, but they will be able to locate and destroy the cloning machines. Obi-Wan chases after the Sith Lord. It won't matter matter if Anakin and Sizor destroy the machines, if the Sith Lord still has the genetic material, he could unleash more clones later on. Obi-Wan will track him down and kill him. I haven't talked much about Padme, but she and Anakin are already married. You might be disappointed I skipped the romance subplot, but in the original trilogy, I think most people bought the Han and Leia romance, and it only had one movie to develop, since it was barely a thing in A New Hope. Plus, the romance was not well written in the prequels we got, so keeping it more in the background is the best course of action. Padme's working with the Senate in trying to end this war somewhat peacefully. She stumbles on a plot within the Senate to secede from the Republic, as some are growing uncomfortable with how comfortable Palpatine is in controlling the Republic. She brings this to Palpatine's attention, and will later be dismayed to find many of the core members of this plan died in some unexplainable freak accident. She can't prove it, but she's suspicious Palpatine orchestrated their deaths. And the ones who didn't die, they're all very keen to support Palpatine now, while they were very eager to secede earlier. Padme's arc would parallel Obi-Wan's, where she now distrusts the government she once believed in. Since there's no internal affairs to report Palpatine to, Padme sees no other choice but to join what's left of this movement to break away from the government. Much like how Empire ended on a downer, this one does too. Our heroes are victorious, the Sith Lord is dead, the cloning machines are destroyed, though it's a Pyrrhic victory, as the Jedi clones are still out there, and some of our Jedi are feeling increasingly uneasy about this war. So that's it for my version of Episode 2. Come back next week for the conclusion to my fixes on the prequels. Until then, may the Force be with you.